Thank you. Are we on yet? Do we hear this?
Yeah, we hear it.
Okay, good, because I can't. I should introduce everybody. So I'm going to start with my cast. Steven Silver, come on out here, Steven. Spencer Neville. Spencer, come on. Nicola Peltz. Nicola, come on out here, Nick. David James Elliott. David, come on out here. Sammy Ratibi. Sammy. Our amazing writer, Stanley Kalu. And our brilliant score done by Daryl Jones. Daryl, come on out here.
So I want to start with, this is such an incredible cast and such a pitch perfectly chosen ensemble. And also it occurs to me that there's not a lot of dramas made for this age group that are very serious and thoughtful in that way. I was wondering kind of what your process was together, your process working with actors, what kind of conversations we're having between you guys.
I mean, Stanley had a really complex script, and we didn't have an awful lot of time to process the material. So this is going to sound odd, but what I really tasked the cast with was I needed them to act. And what I mean by that is I needed them to digest the material, understand what it was. Lines weren't as important to me as the connection between the characters. And there were certainly instances where, Stanley written very specific things that need to be said, but in moments where there was space for interpretation and space for performance, I tried to really open it up for them so that they could be real in those moments and connect, and so it wouldn't feel like this thing that we were trying to, put on everybody. I really wanted it to come from them. And I think some of our best moments were served by Stanley's foundation and then augmented by everyone's talent. It's like sheet music.
Right, yeah. You often talk about it in musical metaphor and the jazz of this. And I know, Stanley, how many screenplays had you written before this? Somebody give him a mic.
Yeah, this was my first one. I wrote it in class. Thanks, guys. It was just I wrote it in class, and and then it became that, which is amazing. Yeah.
I'm curious about, we were talking a little bit, there was a big rewriting process, and I was wondering kind of how the two of you worked on that, if the actors want to chime in. I don't know whether it was sort of like hearing it out of people's mouths and then working it that way.
It was a lot of me in my bedroom by myself.
Yeah.
For the first half of it, it was a lot of me going through and then having meetings with Ali, and then note meetings with Zach and Jason, and they're just say this, and they'd lock me away, and then I'd be typing real fast, and then from there, once we got onto set, it was a lot more collaborative. Ali would go through my lines and be like, remove this, you don't need this, tighten this up, and then again I'd go to the trailer, type away, and try and make it work, and then they would do their thing. That's kind of the rewrite process.
The difficult thing, translating from the written word to the performance is that the actors need space to work, and in terms of bringing this to life, in terms of visuals, you need space to do that as well. So, it's not a book. and so as much as Stanley wrote some brilliant things, we try to hone it down to what's really, really necessary. What's the one element here that's the thing that we must hear, and then how do the other performers and collaborators color it to make it the thing that we really want to present. And he was really great about that process. I mean, we had some creative kind of tugs of war, but I think I hoped that, he would trust the vision and trust the experiences that I had, and then I in turn needed to trust the actors and let them be what they could be in this space.
And kind of on that note, one of the things that really impressed me when I first saw the movie was how strikingly honest the intimacy is between the performances, between the actors. You know, a lot of the scenes are just two people and very personal and very intimate. And I was wondering how well you guys knew each other. Did you spend time together beforehand? That sort of thing. Did you workshop it a lot, kind of off hours, that sort of thing?
Yeah. Hello. We did not know each other prior to filming together. However, we got to know each other very quickly. And it was easy because Nicola and Spencer both are wonderful people, and we all have become friends outside of this. Actual friends that actually hang out and go to each other's houses, and Nicola and I live like 3 minutes walking from each other, so I go to her house sometimes. When I read the script, I knew that if I took the role, it wasn't one that I was going to be able to half step with. So I was going to have to really release my heart and my being into the scenes so that they could be authentic. Because with this kind of writing, if you are afraid, then you're going to fall short. You kind of got to really run and jump.
I had to stop Stephen from crying a lot.
Oh, really?
No,
Yeah.
I mean literally just the gravity of the material. He was pushing himself in every scene to these really deeply emotional places, and I'm like, okay, I can't have you do that. We can't get there in every scene. It's like we gotta ramp up to that space, and it's really difficult because it's a time loop, and ultimately each sequence ends with the same thing, so it's never less emotional for him. So it's like I have to find places to kind of pull up short. That last scene that you see with Spencer and David when he does not come out to his dad, I didn't realize how deeply Spencer had to dig to get to that place. And we finished one take, and I was about to walk over and talk to him, and he goes, "I need a minute." And that minute took about 15, 20 minutes because, I mean, literally he fell apart, and it gave me so much respect for what they had to do because I'm just asking them, can you do this? Can you do that? But not really appreciating what it takes in order to get there. And I mean, they just are, they're students, and in their own way, they will become masters of their craft. I think these guys are all amazing. I only said that because Spencer doesn't like to talk.
Yeah, I wanted to give you guys a chance to answer before I open it up to the audience. Were there other things you wanted to add to that?
Well, we didn't have much time to get to know each other. I mean, we had one working session where we kind of read through it. The totality from like getting the job to finishing it was like literally 3 weeks. I think 16 shooting days.
I think from the moment that I discovered that the script existed at all to the first day of shooting might have been 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah. So not a lot of time to get to know each other, but look at these
It's
faces.
super
They're
easy,
very,
yeah.
they're very trusting faces. So it was
Yeah.
fun to just have that.
Now I can't get
comfortability.
rid of them.
I feel like we bonded I love you, but I feel like the first second I met Steven, I felt like he honestly was my best friend. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah,
It was like,
we bonded because we ordered the same thing at dinner, and then we turned to each other like,
it's very
I know
instant.
Well, I'm going to open it up to the audience. Does anybody have any questions? Right here? So the question was for Stanley, and it was why you chose to use the loop structure for the story.
That's like a several layered thing, but I'm from Nigeria, right? And I've lived all over Africa, and I came to America, and that was the first time I was a minority, right? So it was the first time that I understood that like my body meant something to other people, and was partially not my own. So when I came and I kept seeing people that look like me, big, tall, black dudes, die every day. It was to me a very simple thing of like, this is a cycle of death that is continued. So the time loop comes from my general feeling that like it wasn't just Michael Brown or like any of these people. It was really just like all of us were continually dying. And yeah, so that's where the loop comes from. I hope that answered your question.
Up here. So the question was, you mentioned the Masquerade of the Okaroshi. When did that get included into the script? And have you seen the Lost Okaroshi, which we're showing tonight?
So for me, like I grew up like actually like watching the Masquerades. And no, I'm not aware of that movie, but now that I am, I will probably check it out. So for me, it was the idea. There's in Yoruba religion, right? There's this concept of when you die, a piece of you goes to heaven, and then a piece of you is reborn in another person. Tunde means he who returns, right? So like, for me, the masquerades are a part of that culture where like ancestors move through space, and that's what I was trying to allude to, like as a mythological like underlying piece for the loop, because I was trying to stack the concepts of loops. Also, it's this idea of like being seen and unseen, being dead and undead, and I specifically with the idea of the masquerade, that really comes out, is that this ancestor, while gone, is here, and you can see him, kind of, but you can't quite, you know? So it's like a metaphor thing for me that I was playing with. I hope that serves. Thank you. Cool. I'll definitely check it out, bro. Yeah.
We have time for a couple more. I'm just making sure. Back there. Yep. So the question was for the actors. Can you tell us about the challenges in playing your roles?
I think the most challenging thing for me was the time loop, because I wanted to make sure I was where I was supposed to be emotionally with my character. But I loved it. That was actually one of my favorite things about the script. I think Stanley's such an amazing writer, and he wrote such full characters. So it was easy in the way to play Marley because you wrote such a full character, and I could just run with it. But the most challenging thing for me was the time loop, I would say.
David, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess the challenge for my character was to not fall into a stereotype and to make him a rounded, full breathing human being, because I think that one of the challenges for us today, and certainly in America, where things seem to be black and white, it's just so two-sided, that what's missing is conversation, and that's one of the things that I loved about Stanley's movie and the way Ali orchestrated it, was that it was very open and flowing, and there were other ideas, and it was about fear, and it was about perception more than actual events and moments. I love the ending for that reason too, that none of it was real, but it all took place in his mind, and it had to do with with dealing with these sort of overarching problems in our society without him actually experiencing them. So I don't know if that what that does, but that's where I'm at.
Let's hear from Sammy too. We haven't heard from Sammy at all.
I was trying to help. It was really interesting playing this role because actually my middle name is Baba Tunde. When my grandfather died, I'm also from Nigeria as well. When my grandfather died, I was born with Baba Tunde coming back again. It was such an amazing role, and just to be a part of your story, I feel very blessed. The challenging thing is, like, my older brother's generation, and coming out, I think that's why I think this movie is so great. Telling your parents that you're gay, it's not something that it's looked upon, it's smiled upon, or what's the word can I use? It's very tough for a teenager to come out and say I'm this or that, because it's looked down upon where we come from anyways. And so the fact that you wrote this script and you telling this story, and hopefully the teenagers and the kids can, it gives them a voice to stand up. And I just feel great to be a part of it. I can't really say too much. I'm a bit shy, so I'm going to pass it on.
I mean, I know we just have time for a couple more questions, but before we get to them, I personally want to give my thanks to Daryl Jones for a really beautiful score. I do this because he won't. Daryl Jones is a world-class bassist. You may have seen him play with the Rolling Stones for the last 25 years or so. And this work is so dramatically different from what you typically do. Can I ask him a question?
but it'll be our last question. So let's make sure we get these guys to answer the last question, and then why don't you ask them a question?
Yeah.
We'll wrap up that way. Yeah.
I just want to know what it was like, with your background, really coming up with the score, because it really, for me, I thought it was really beautiful and tender and lovely in some spaces, and it was really haunting in others. And I just want to know, like, for you, how did it strike you when you saw the footage and when you read the script and when we came to you with this?
Well, it's the parts of the movie that are tender it's a love story, and so I really did approach it from the place of tenderness, and the other parts of the movie. I mean, you use the two words that best describe the feelings that I was trying to kind of help emote. It's haunting to see what is happening, with between law enforcement and young young black men of color and young men of color, whether they be from whatever group, and so it was really just about trying to bring forth those feelings and not get out too much ahead of it. Which was really a great lesson that you kind of bestowed upon me. Don't tell the story before the story is being told. You have to kind of, it's in a way the same thing that you were saying about Stephen is like, don't get out in front of it. Let it, come out and evolve and move along with the way the story is being unfolded. So it was really. I am humbled and honored to be a part of this project. I think it's something very, very special. And thank you. Thank you.
I want to make sure Spencer and Stephen get the last word in terms of challenges you faced with the script and the.
For me, I think, of course, every actor always wants more time with the material, especially something as complicated as this and that touches on as many motifs as this movie does. So for me, I would have liked to have spent a good 20 years getting ready. But we didn't have 20 years.
Barely had 3 weeks.
Right, we had more like 20 days. But one of the big challenges was tackling content that is still very, the pulse of the world is kind of enduring these things right now. Queer people, people of color, any disenfranchised people, women, everyone who doesn't kind of have the mic. The world is a group project, and for the first time, I think through social media, everyone has the mic now, and so I felt a great deal of responsibility to give my best effort, because I know that, like, even with as far as suicide, all these topics are real topics for people, and if done correctly, they could help and heal a lot of people.
Well said.
Okay.
That's all I got.
All right.
I'm just kidding.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you.
I do have something.
Okay, go ahead.
Just personally, balancing the two personas of Soren, trying to portray to everybody else in his life that he's this masculine, straight dude, and then obviously having an incredibly intimate. Me too. Connecting it all together, it's My brain's racing. Anyway, fuck, I forgot what it was.
You're saying the duality of him is this masculine.
Right, and then having an intimate relationship with him. So then trying to balance those things while also, as Tunde says in the movie, you know, seeing Tunde for who he is, but then obviously with the car scene being totally unaware of his white privilege in the world. So trying to, you know, balance those things was difficult or challenging. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, I'm afraid we have to wrap up, but thank you guys so much for coming and sharing the film with us.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.